Folks, let me tell you about Yamatai. Let me tell you about Queen Himiko and how you, the master builder, will gather resources, create supply lines, and build buildings to create the most wonderful capital of Yamatai, all to win Queen Himiko's favor. And it comes in this box that pretty much is screaming at you, love me because I'm beautiful, look at all my colors. And rightly so, because Yamatai comes from Days of Wonder, which is a publisher known for creating nice, gorgeous, luscious, beautiful boxes of wood and cardboard aimed mostly at families, and they are accessible for everyone. Games like Small World or Ticket to Ride. However, Yamatai, in a surprising plot twist, is far more complicated than all of those. The first thing you discover when you open up Yamatai is that it has an amazingly efficient insert. Until, of course, you hold it up vertically and everything falls down. But it doesn't matter, because as many beautiful components as Yamatai has, it is still a game about having the most prestige points, and the rulebook does shorten it to PP. PP. Because what does PP make?
Points make prizes. What do points make?
No, geez, Bruce. PP makes prizes. Come on, mate, get it right. There are a number of ways to get PP in Yamatai, but one of the most common ways is building buildings. And in true Days of Wonder style, you get big, chunky bits of wood to represent your buildings. What I'm trying to avoid saying here is that PP comes from wood, because it's just the second scene and I feel like I've gone too far. No, but seriously, Yamatai, buildings, how do you build them? Well, each round you will receive a row of 5 buildings that will be available to be built, and each of these has a resource requirement on the side. But the trick is, it's not you who needs to achieve these personal resources, but it is the supply lines around the island that need to have those resources available, and once they match, you can go ahead and plonk your building down. Why? Well, because in ancient times, it wasn't quite as simple to order construction materials. Hello, Amazon. Yes, can I order some cement, please? 40 tons and some bricks, brown. I'm building a palace. Whatever is best. And do you have any links? I don't know. Caramelized onion? Or perhaps Cumberland wrapped in bacon. And that's why the resources in the game are not represented with wooden cubes, but are represented by these amazing little wooden ships. Whilst the majority of what you're doing is just placing wooden ships around islands, there's actually a thematic abstraction going on here. Instead of just placing resources, you are creating supply lines to these islands. So once you have 2 sources of clay and 1 source of wood, you can go ahead and build yourself this clay bungalow? And this is the first clever thing that Yamatai does. Whilst ships in your hand are your personal resources, once you place them onto these spots, they become a common supply available to everyone, because you've advanced these shipping trade routes. Other master builders, i.e. your opponents, can now use them, especially because every ship is adjacent to multiple islands. So even if you build something on one of these islands for yourself, there are 2 other islands full of resources that everyone else can go and exploit however they like. It's a bit like if you wasted time and energy and money going to the shop to buy some peanut butter, and then somehow your housemate decided that it's theirs and ate it. Yes, Elaine, that was my peanut butter that I've bought with my money. And you just, But there's a trick to placing these ships. At the start of your turn, you will receive a number of boats, and you are then sort of forced to place almost all of them onto the map. And when you do place them, you always have to place them in a continuous line, meaning you can't break apart your ship placement, and it just kind of follows a thing. But unless you are placing your boats from one of the 5 starting locations, well, you can kind of place boats anywhere, as long as it meets these 2 criteria. A, it starts adjacent to another already existing ship, and the first boat that you place on your turn has to match colors with one of those existing ships, and then you can continue your line however you like. And if you think about it, that kind of makes sense thematically, if your supply line is known for having wood, it only makes sense that you start your own supply line with wood as well. Let's say you want to build this building that is made entirely out of bamboo, because you're not afraid of the big bad panda huffing and puffing and then lazily going for a nap and showing a general disinterest in procreation. This particular island is a great spot for your new bamboo getaway because, hey, it has 3 empty supply spots that you could place your 3 newly acquired bamboo boats. But here's a problem, of course, because there are no other green-colored boats around this island. You can't place the 3 bamboo boats here because you have to follow the rules of the game, meaning that if you want to start a chain around that island first, you have to place 1 boat that matches a color with one of the other boats, and then the other 2 spots can be taken up by the green boats. But now, of course, there aren't 3 green bamboo boats around it, so you can't actually build that building anymore, and all you've managed to build is your growing dissatisfaction with your inability to plan things properly. A lot of Yamatai revolves around this boat placement, and you keep placing boats more and more as the game progresses until you get to a point where you could blink your eyes and you could swear that the board is made out of Skittles. Wait a minute. These are Skittles. And of course these boats come in different rarity, bamboo being in pretty common supply, whilst gold is on the other side of the resource spectrum, being the hardest to acquire. But of course the best buildings in the game will require you to have multiple gold to build them, and gold is not only hard to get, but it is hard to chain with. But this game is so much more than just discovering things that you want to do but can't. And that all comes down to how you acquire boats in the first place. At the start of every one of your turns, you will select one of these tiles and they'll do 3 things. First, they will determine what kind of boat you're getting. So you might just get a single gold boat, or you might get 2 boats, or at the best of times, you might even get 3 boats. But on top of that, the second thing that they do is they give you a bonus special ability that you must execute immediately as soon as you take one of these. This is what makes every turn in Yamatai a bit of a head scratcher, because the abilities on these tiles that you select range from something that's a bit inconsequential, such as looking at the top 3 building tiles on the building stack and rearranging them in any order, which hardly matters because they're all going to come out anyway, to something downright game-breaking, such as removing any 2 boats anywhere from the board, which makes you rethink everything that you can do. In the previous example where we couldn't build the green building because we couldn't actually place 3 green boats around that island, if we now removed said 2 black boats, we could easily place the 3 necessary green boats, especially because we even now have a green boat that we can lead from, and we can build ourselves that bamboo building that we wanted. Except that we couldn't, because this tile only gives you a green boat and a black boat, not 3 green boats. However, if you saved 1 green boat from the previous turn, and then you bought 1 boat, which you're allowed to do once per turn, you could actually have the 3 green boats necessary, and then you'll build it, and then you'll get yourself 1 point. All that effort for 1 point. But the most important factor on these tiles is this number at the bottom, which determines your initiative for the next round. Some of the coolest abilities on these tiles are tied to very high numbers, meaning you can do something cool now, but you will likely go last. And you don't want to go last in Yamatai. Why? Because all the cool stuff happens at the start of every round. All the new buildings get refreshed at the start of the new round. These ability tiles get refreshed at the start of the new round. And if you're going last, all the coolest buildings will be gone, or the easy to build buildings will be gone, and the tiles that give you good boats or give you good relevant abilities or let you go next on the next round, they're also gone. So all you're left with is, well, something that's not really that great. But Yamatai isn't just a game about planning, it is also about exploiting every opportunity that comes your way. At the start of the game, most of the islands will be seeded with honor tokens, and these honor tokens are, well, they're a bit of a pain in the old posterior because they don't let you build buildings until the honor token has been cleared off from the board. Now, you can only do one thing on your given turn. You can either build a building or clear off honor tokens, but they're not useless on their own either. You can spend these honor tokens to hire specialists, people that give you a unique ability that is exclusive to you, and they will let you develop strategies over the course of the game. They will let you choose a direction to go in. Let's say you manage to nab the specialist that makes every one of your prestige tokens worth 1 extra PP. Prestige tokens are worth PP on their own, so I'm never going to stop laughing at that. And you can acquire them in the game in various ways, but if you manage to then secure the specialist that gives you 1 prestige token every time you build one of your buildings not adjacent to one of your other buildings, well, now you're cooking with gas. Of course, to pick up honor tokens, you still have to place boats, meaning that you are opening up avenues for your other players. Because, well, not only are you placing those boats that they can later use, but, of course, you're clearing the islands off of honor tokens, and now they can build on them. Yamatai is not the most complicated game that I have played, but it is the most complicated Days of Wonder game that I have played. And that's because it has everything in it. It has strategy, tactics, variable draftable player powers and interaction, a unique rule set, skittles, quasi-mythological Japan. I say quasi-mythological because it's based on historical events, but then there's kitchen sink, everything. And it's hard to fully appreciate everything on your first playthrough. And even though it's so colorful and inviting and you want to jump in, but then you find yourself meandering through this palette of Disney colors because you don't know what specialist synergizes with what other specialists and what you're supposed to be doing. You just want to score points, so you move boats on the map, and boats will give you points because they'll turn into buildings eventually. Finally, once you've actually played a game or two, you will be able to grasp the scope of everything it is trying to get you to do. It doesn't mean that those first games are going to be particularly fun. Okay, here's one more rule in Yamatai. Every time you build a building next to another one of your buildings, you will get a number of coins equal to the number of buildings in that cluster. In this particular case, 2. Build a 3rd building later on, you'll get 3 coins. Build a 4th building, you'll get 4 coins. And remember that green bamboo building we were trying to build? Well, that particular building gives you very little points, but it has a special ability saying that if you do trigger this special rule that you get extra coins for building adjacent to other buildings, well, build your 5th building and it will double that to 10. What are coins good for? Well, they let you buy extra boats every turn, and on top of that, every 5 coins at the end of the game are worth 1 PP. We've been through this. And you can also get a specialist that says every 3 coins are worth 1 PP instead, and these are the specialists that kind of point you in the direction you need to go in. The problem is that these specialists come out in unpredictable patterns, and when I say unpredictable patterns, I mean they're totally random. And one of the most important things in Yamatai is identifying which are the specialists that are core to certain strategies and snatching them before anyone else can. However, of course, it's going to take you a few games to learn all the tricks that this game has to offer and identifying which of them are good because, as we mentioned before, there are so many systems and sometimes the skittles distract you. And there's nothing quite like building your game towards a certain strategy, relying on a certain specialist to come out for it to work, and then find out that you gotten to the end of the game and it never even arrived. I am making Yamatai sound strictly regimented to these paths and avenues that you can take your strategies in, and whilst that's not entirely true, the game has flexibility. I have found that often following one of those paths will lead you to victory because you'll be doing a lot better PP-wise. I'm sorry, publishers, but you keep naming victory points, PP. I'm just going to keep doing that over and over again. But how good those strategies are depends entirely, sometimes, on player count as well. If you're only playing with one other willing participant, then you will be taking 2 turns every round instead of 1. And it is possible to even chain them together and have 2 turns in a row, which creates for some very powerful moves. And of course, you get a lot more points than in a regular game. And everything isn't quite as tight, whereas if you're playing with 4 players, it's complete chaos and you can't do any thinking outside of your turn because everything changes all the time. 3 players has elements of both, but then has its own quirks and peculiarities. Which number should you play with? I can't even help you decide. Yamatai is a lot to take in, not just color-wise, but everything-wise, and sometimes it just stumps you. Consider that there are about 20 possible places where you could start your turn, and 5 different action tiles that you could select one with, and 5 different buildings that you could build, and just figuring out where you want to go can take a while, and waiting for the other person to figure out where they want to go is not at all fun, especially because you can't really do any planning on your own turn because everything's going to change. And then in a 4-player game, you can easily engineer a situation where you're first on the round and then the next round you're last, meaning there's 6 turns of people deciding where to go between you get to go. That's not fun. And I know I'm making Yamatai sound like a game that I didn't quite like. That's not entirely true. There's so much in Yamatai. You are bound to like some things and dislike others, much like your family or a pack of Cadbury's roses. Because, you know, you eat all the good chocolates and then you're just left with a bunch of orange chocolate. And who likes orange chocolate? I mean, you're going to eat it anyway because it's chocolate. You're not going to throw away chocolate, are you? But I suspect nobody really buys Cadbury's roses. You know, you just get them for Christmas or whatever. And that's what I've got for Yamatai. It's Cadbury's roses. This video is brought to you by Cadbury's roses and Skittles. Possibly better than Yamatai. Now, we're just joking. No pun included. Does not have any sponsors. Nor does it have any adverts. It just has what we think is humor. But if you enjoyed our video, you should definitely subscribe because we'll keep making videos until we run out of Skittles. And that's not likely to happen because there's a lot of them. Damn it, that's an actual wooden bug. Subscribe!